Hello, it's me again, Natalie. I came across like a title of a video on YouTube and it kind of reminded me of something, so I thought I would talk about it today. And it is time travel. I love time travel. It's one of my favorite. I'm a sci-fi geek and I love time travel. And it was a video about how you can use meditation in order to travel back in time to your childhood and not necessarily correct things, but bring more love to the past. And it kind of reminded me of an experience that I've had with time travel, and I thought I would share it with you because maybe it will resonate with you and you can use it in your own practice. And so I've been doing a lot of emotional and energetic healing during the last 7 years, I would say, maybe 4, but who's counting? It's probably something like 7 since I was 30. I went through this whole crisis and I started going in instead of remaining outside in the world. And I did a lot of meditations with the inner child, and inner child work is interesting. It's a whole topic and it's very hard to explain in a few sentences, but it's basically taking something that's troubling me today. It can be an emotional trigger, it can be something that's not working, something that's not going my way, something that's troubling me, anything that's going on in my day-to-day now, focusing on it in meditation and then trying to find the sensation, the feeling, the energetic feeling, the emotional feeling, the emotion, whatever I'm feeling while I'm thinking of this thing that's bothering me. And then kind of diving into that feeling and sensation and allowing space for different memories from my life where I felt the same way. And it's kind of like going down the rabbit hole, because once you start doing that, there's like another memory and another memory and another memory. And then if you go back enough, you will end up in your childhood in the first 10 years of our life. There is an initial memory, an initial trauma, something that happened when we were young that made us feel this way. And usually it's because a misunderstanding of reality as we were just children. So we didn't really understand how the world worked, but we kind of tried to understand, and then we made a mess of it and we held on to these unrealistic beliefs about the world and life and reality. You could say that it is a form of time travel, because once you go in deep and you're in a state of meditation, so your brainwaves aren't very active, it's like diving into our subconscious, and our subconscious doesn't have linear time. Our subconscious doesn't experience past, present, future. It's just all happening at the same time, which some people would call eternity, the fourth dimension. And that's what happens when you go into a deep state of meditation. And when you do that with an intention, you can go back to memories and experience them as if they're happening right now. So one time I did this, it was a few years ago, and I was feeling sick. I wasn't well, and I was very lonely and feeling sorry for myself. And I went into meditation because I know that although there was a physical element of not feeling well doesn't necessarily bring up emotions of loneliness. Not necessarily. It might for a lot of people, but it doesn't. They don't have to go together. You can be sick and not feel lonely because there are people around you who love you and take care of you. So they don't have to go together, but for me they did. And so I went into that feeling of loneliness, and I'm sick and I'm poor, no one's taking care of me, no one's loving me. And it was in a state of very deep meditation that I arrived at a memory that I had. I was about 9 years old, and my family and me had just moved from England to Israel, and I didn't know the language. And I was just dropped into school in the middle of the year. I didn't know how to talk Hebrew. I didn't know anyone. I was very lonely that year. My parents were going through things, so they weren't with us as usual. And I was very sick one time, and I remember, this is the memory that came up in the meditation, and I was very sick, and I had a fever. I was about 9 years old. I was lying in bed. And as I'm going back to the memory in meditation, I'm imagining that, you know, the Natalie of today is walking into the memory, and I kind of sat by this 9-year-old child who was sick and crying with a fever and sweating and coughing, and I just laid my hand on her chest and I started breathing with her. And the more I breathed with her, she calmed down and she started to feel better. And I cried with the girl, and all these emotions came up of how lonely I felt and how alone I was, and suddenly with this imagination of me putting my hand on her chest, I felt less lonely and less alone, and the girl started to feel better. And then afterwards, when I came out of meditation, when I was kind of climbing back up to the now, I kind of remembered that when I was that 9-year-old girl, I felt a presence in the room. I felt someone was in there with me, putting their hand on my chest, calming me down and helping me feel better. And there was no human being that was actually in the room when I was at that age and that experience. It was in my mind. I was probably hallucinating because I had a fever and I was young and very sick. But it was a very specific memory of someone in the room putting their hand on my chest. And only after I came out of this deep meditation, only after I actually did this thing in meditation, did I kind of remember that I actually had that memory, and it did happen. And we're talking like 20-something years ago. And that's when I understood time travel. Because you could say that when I was young, I was hallucinating, but I did have this experience. I did have this memory. Maybe the memory was created after I did the meditation and went and put my hand on her chest, but I'm pretty sure that my whole life I had this memory of this happening. And it was kind of like, once I started doing some emotional work with myself and healing work, and I was more connected to myself, and I was working with the meditation and the different realms of consciousness that we can exist in, suddenly I had this tool to go back and heal the child. So it happened today, but when I was a child, I experienced it. And it's kind of weird in a way. But that's how people like Joe Dispenza talk about changing our past. And I believe that it is true. We can actually change our memories of the past in our subconscious and make them happier, more positive, more loving. Bring in the love to the inner child that she didn't get when she was a kid, and bring it in there today, and actually change these memories for the better, which helps us change our patterns in our day-to-day life and the way we react, think, and feel. So that's one of my time travel experiences. And, you know, ever since then, obviously I've been doing it. It's not that I have many bad childhood memories, but when I do have one, I kind of alter it, I change it, I go in there and I give that child the love that she needs, and I listen to her and I sit with her and I love her, and she's my best friend now. And she doesn't feel lonely, and she doesn't feel sad, and she doesn't feel neglected, because I've corrected so many of those past memories that in my memory now, there was always someone there for me, even though in reality, no one was. So that's how we can travel in time, through meditation and working with the energy and the emotions and the inner child and our subconscious, which is there for everyone. We just need the right tools to know how to work with it. So if you want to do a session with me and find out more about these amazing tools and ways to heal ourselves, then you can email me. My email is down below. And if you want to subscribe and like and follow, then you're more than welcome, because I'm here and I will be sharing more of my strange and weird experiences with you. So thanks for listening, and I hope you're well, and sending you lots of love.